2 rounds to go here from the Des Plaines, Illinois Battle Road until we decide who is the champion, who goes undefeated. 6-0 takes home the 15 championship points, the victory cup, and all the glory. This is round 5. We have Joe Baka on the right and Steve Bala, who is back once again, on the left. So this will be another Darkrai matchup. I know people are starting to get a little tired of watching Darkrai, but I don't think he's going away anytime soon. Darkrai is pretty good. It's in a lot of the top decks. But there's something you don't see very often. There's a Mew EX and a Terrakion. Alright, so Joe is playing a Darkrai Terrakion deck. It looks like he's also had some Crushing Hammers in his deck too, so he's kind of meshed the Hammer Time and Terrakion Darkrai deck into one. Not sure how he fit all those cards into one deck, but I guess we'll find out. So that's what he's going to be playing. Steve is using a Darkrai Hydreigon deck, the same one he's used in the previous time we've had him on video. I believe that was round 3. He starts with his Mew EX, which is probably the last thing he wants to start with. But who knows? Anything can happen. Looks like Joe is going to have a strong start. He has an Ultra Ball. Gets to discard a Dark Energy. This is your main hurdle in the early going with any Darkrai deck. You want to get Dark Energy in the discard pile as soon as possible so that you can use Dark Patch and power up your guys. He's going to Ultra Ball, discards an Energy Switch as well. So he does play that. It's a crucial card to be playing with Terrakion just so you can drop him down out of nowhere. Energy Switch, then attach, and retaliate, and get a surprise knockout. So, plays that as well. Looks like he's going to have an N. He'll probably play that. And he does. That's what he's going to go for. Now, Terrakion works very well with Darkrai because the Dark Cloak ability on Darkrai gives Terrakion free retreat if you have a Dark Energy attached to it. Normally, Terrakion has an abysmal 4 retreat cost, but with Darkrai in play, you can just retreat for free. All of a sudden, it's like he can just kind of float away. When before, he's just like, nope, I'm sitting here. You ain't getting rid of me without a switch. Otherwise, you're going to have to pay a lot. But with Darkrai out, it's like, alright, I guess I'll move. But it doesn't look like Joe got a Darkrai, but he does have a Dark Patch. He'll put that onto Sableye, and he can still attach. He should probably just put a Fighting on the active. He can put a Fighting or a Dark. He's going to go with the Fighting. I like that. That's going to give him an option to retaliate or even Land Crush if he draws another Fighting on an Energy Switch. So that's actually kind of threatening. So I much prefer putting the Fighting on there. I like that play. Steve is starting off kind of poorly. He gets an Eviolite on his Mew. That's a good thing. But I don't think he has a supporter. That is bad news. He's going to Ultra Ball away, an Ultra Ball, and it looks like maybe a Dark Patch. Not sure what he's going to grab. He's thinking about a Dino. Maybe a Darkrai or a Sableye. Not too sure what he's going to grab quite yet, but I'm sure we'll find out shortly. Now this matchup in general is kind of weird. The Darkrai Terrakion deck normally is quicker. You get the first Night Spear off most of the time just because your deck is more consistent. It's speedier. You have the Energy Switch to kind of just pull off some shenanigans to get a quick Night Spear. And usually they'll take the lead. But once the Hydreigon deck sets up, it starts to come back with the max potions and all that. But actually, at some point, Terrakion can still come up and knock out a Darkrai in one hit. So, who knows? This is a very close matchup. It usually comes down to N at the end of the game, who draws what, and all that good stuff. Now, Steve actually had to copy Sableye's Confuse Ray that turn, because he didn't have a better option. So, he Confuse Rays the Terrakion for 10 damage. That 10 damage could actually end up being very big, believe it or not. And then confuses the Terrakion, which is going to make it tough for Joe to get an attack off this turn. He could go for it, of course. He could go for the Retaliate. And then, if he gets heads, he gets a knockout. But if he gets tails, that is disastrous. he goes down to 90 hit points, which is Night Spear range, which means the Darkrai can just knock him out. You don't want that to happen, so he's probably just going to retreat and then Junk Hunt this turn. I don't see him doing anything else. I mean, he could really take the risk and go for the Retaliate. But, I mean, that's exactly what it is. It's a risk. And Steve has shown us that he does not have a very good hand. So is that a risk you want to take? I don't know. It's going to be tough to decide what he wants to do. Taking out the Dino would be huge, because then Steve has no option to get a Hydreigon out quickly. But getting Tails is just as huge. It's really terrible to have your Terrakion just be in Night Spear range, because you want him to be a Darkrai killer, not the prey, I guess. You want him to hunt down the Darkrai. You don't want it to be the other way around. And when he's only got 90 hit points left, he's going to get hunted down. He's going to be the first target that your opponent goes for, because he is so strong against Darkrai. But it looks like, yep, he's just going to retreat and play it safe. I do like that play a lot. And we'll see what he gets back with the Junk Hunt. It looks like he was eyeing up the Catcher and Energy Switch. And he got it, yep. Alright, so Catcher, Energy Switch. So even if that the Dino does manage to get to the bench, he will be able to Catcher it back out. So the Catcher there, he got to use one, and he didn't really waste anything, because he got it right back. So a terrible start for Steve, who just does not have anything going for him. That Dino is probably just going to get retaliated for 60, since it is weak to fighting. We do see people play the Dragon Dino sometimes, just for this kind of a situation where your opponent plays fighting types. So you go, alright, I'm going to just search for the Dino that's not weak to fighting. I think Steve actually does play one. I just don't think he has one right now. It must be prized or something like that. At the very least, Joe should get a knockout this turn, whether it's retaliating or pulls off some magical Night Spear this turn. I don't see that happening, though. But I think we'll just see him retreat and retaliate for the knockout. I don't see him really doing anything else. He has a Juniper in hand, but there's a lot of stuff in there he probably doesn't want to get rid of. He could. Drawing 7 cards, of course, is pretty good. But I don't think he'll Juniper that away. He also has a Bianca, so if he wants to draw cards, he'll play that. Right now, he can retreat for free with the Dark Cloak that I was mentioning earlier. Just send up Terrakion to retaliate for the knockout. Take the first prize, take the Dino off the board, put a lot of pressure on Steve. Pretty much be in a dominant position with a Terrakion just 1 energy away from being able to land crush, which is going to scare Steve from putting down any Darkrai's anytime soon. And yeah, this is just what Terrakion can do. If you get it out early enough, he is a complete monster. I mean, just staring down a Terrakion with 3 energy if you're playing a Darkrai deck is probably the scariest thing in the world. I mean, it is just, oh god, what do I do? I can't knock that thing out in 1 hit. It knocks me out in 1 hit and takes 2 prizes against my Darkrai. If I finally knock it out, which is probably going to take 2 hits, I only get 1 prize. That is not a good situation to be in. So, Steve, he's got to top deck something soon. Otherwise, he is just done for. And it looks like Ultra Ball is not the card he wanted to get. So Joe might just take a simple victory here. He's going to be able to Night Spear this turn now because he energy switched the energy off Sableye last turn. So he's going to get another knockout. And he'll go down to 4 prizes. He'll put 30 on the Mew EX as well. So that's going to mean a Night Spear next turn. We'll knock that out. He'll be down to 2 prizes. That's not looking good for Steve. I mean, this is how quickly things can spin out of control. Now, of course, he could top deck an N or something and get back into the game. That's always a possibility. And hey, he got a Juniper, so that's going to help him out a lot. He puts down the Mewtwo, Juniper, and he's going to draw 7 new cards. Alright, so we might have a game here, folks. He does get the Dragon Dino, so that was not prized before. I'm surprised he didn't go for that one. He shows us his hand, which is, I mean, not the greatest, but it's not the worst either. He has a Rare Candy Hydreigon and a couple N's and a Juniper. So next turn, if his Dino survives, he will be able to get a Hydreigon. And I assume it will survive because even if Joe has a catcher, it's way too tempting not to just, knock out the Mew and take 2 prizes. I think the better play actually might be taking out the Dino, just so Steve doesn't get any of that nonsense into play. But, I mean, you can't fault anyone for taking the 2 prizes here. You go down to 2 prizes, that's such a simple victory from there. I mean, you knock out 1 more EX and you win the game. So I definitely think he will just Night Spear the active here, probably hit the Dino for 30, and then follow it up from there. Steve, the only thing he really has going for him is that Joe has actually taken his prizes almost too quickly. And what I mean by that is, if you just kind of storm out the gates like this, and take 4 prizes, this is like his 4th turn, he's taken 4 prizes or something like that. When you do this, look how many cards are left in Joe's deck. That means he's got a lot of fluff that he can draw into. And what I mean by that is he can just draw like a handful of energy, a handful of trainers, and he might not ever be able to power up another Pokemon if something like this happens. Stevie's going to end. Joe's going to go down to 2 cards. He's now got the Hydreigon in play, and I gotta say, this could just turn around. I know you might think it seems unlikely, but these sorts of game states are very fragile if you're on Joe's side. If Steve can manage to power up any attacker and wipe out the 2 that Joe has, he might not be able to power up another one unless he draws into like a Juniper and then gets a perfect hand. But look at his hand, he's got an N and a fighting energy. He has no options anymore. He's really just playing with whatever he has on the board, and that's not going to be good enough if Steve can manage to power up even that Mewtwo. I mean, if he gets some max potions and just keeps X-balling, he can knock out that Darkrai in 2 hits. He can knock out the Terrakion in 1 hit if he builds up enough energy, thanks to the 10 he did earlier. And I think Steve can make a comeback here, but, he has to draw the right cards. That's really the name of the game at this point. So he's going to put a Dark on the Mewtwo. I don't know if Joe plays a Mewtwo of his own. If he does, that might be another way for him to get kind of an easy win here, if he can energy switch onto it at some point. Joe, I mean, his decisions might seem a little simple at this point, but I think it's more complicated than it seems. I think he kind of realizes too, I mean, yeah, I'm up 4 prizes, but this could turn around very easily. And he might have to use a turn just to use Junk Hunt with Sableye, get back some trainers to try to set himself up a little more. So I wouldn't be surprised if he decides to do that at some point, because just getting back like I don't know if he's actually played a random receiver, but if there's one in his discard pile, you get back a random receiver and maybe like a Dark Patch to power up something. So it looks like he's just going to be on the aggressive though. I agree with this completely. The best way Steve is going to come back is if you give him time, and that's exactly what you don't want to do, give him time. So definitely keep the pressure on. If Steve doesn't draw a max potion, then Joe's actually just going to win by knocking out a Mewtwo, because Steve doesn't have a Darkrai down. So he's not even going to be able to retreat without discarding his energy, and if he does that, well, then he's just going to lose. Sometimes you just kind of take for granted that your stuff gets free retreat, but you do need to have the Darkrai in play in order for that to happen. And Steve right now, he does not. And if he ever benches the Darkrai, then what happens? Terrakion. And if Joe gets a catcher at that point, it's just game over. Now Steve, I don't know what he's doing there. He decides to catcher up Terrakion. I'm not sure why he's doing that. He definitely wants to just take out the Darkrai. That's going to be what's going to pose the greatest threat to him. And he puts down the Darkrai. That's very risky. Oh, might take it back. Oh, puts it back down. Takes it back. Definitely don't want to play that down. It's just catcher game over if you put that down this turn. You can hold on to that. He does draw the max potion. That's the big thing. So he is going to max potion, heal off his Mewtwo completely, move the energy up there, and I don't know why he catches the Terrakion. That was, I mean, maybe. I can kind of see it. Alright, he's going to hit this Terrakion for 100, and then maybe next turn he can X-Ball that Darkrai, And that's going to do, if he gets a third energy out there, it's going to do what? I mean, it's going to do 100, at least, if he gets another energy out there. And then, well, he can just Night Spear and knock out both. Or next turn, he can just drop down his Darkrai, attach, and Night Spear, and knock out the Terrakion. So, the more I think about it, I actually like that play from Steve quite a bit. Joe actually uses this knowledge that Steve took back his Darkrai, and he said, "Oop, I don't want you to have that. I'm going to end." So you can see just how fragile that situation was. If Steve drops down the Darkrai next turn, gets an energy, just retreats, and Night Spears, he can knock out that Terrakion, leaving Joe with nothing but a Darkrai with 90 damage on it. And Steve can make a comeback from there pretty easily. So these couple cards here from Joe are going to be super important. Let's see what he gets. He gets an energy and a catcher. Those are not two cards he really wants here. And this has got to be scary. This is close to just Joe losing. He's ahead 4 prizes, but he could very well just fizzle out from this point and lose the game. Let's see if Steve actually picks up on the fact that he can knock out that Terrakion. That's a great setup play if he realized that, oh, I'm doing 110 on this Terrakion, I could just knock it out with Night Spear now. Hit the active for 90 with my Darkrai. That's definitely what he needs to do. He has the cards in his hand to pull that off, too. He's got a Darkrai in his hand, he can just bench it, retreat, and then Night Spear, get the knockout. That's definitely what he should go for. Now, Joe is just... I think at this point he's realized I'm in some trouble. I am on thin ice here. I could very well lose this game here, and it felt like I was in firm control. I'm up 4 prizes. I got board position on him, and just like that, I got N down to 2 cards. I played another N and got myself 2 cards. Those are not the most useful cards. He's actually going to decide to catcher out the Hydreigon here. And, yeah, it looks like that does have 60 damage on it, so I like that play a lot from Joe. He's going to knock out the Hydreigon and put 30 on the Mewtwo, and that's going to take away that play where Steve gets to Night Spear and pretty much take the game from there. So that was huge, actually. Now, I don't know what Steve can do. He's going to put down a Darkrai. He'll probably play an N this turn as well. He should probably just attach to his Darkrai and try to power that up. But I guess he attaches to the active to go for an X-Ball here. He's going to play another catcher and bring out Terrakion, I guess just to get that out of play. And he plays an N. If you're going to do that, you definitely just attach to the Darkrai instead, so that maybe you can get a Night Spear. Now at this point, the game is just coming down to whether or not Joe draws a catcher. If he does, he's going to win. And if Steve can manage to get out another Hydreigon, he'll be in a decent position, but it's always just going to be, well, if Joe draws a catcher, it's game over. So I don't know what he's actually going to do here. He's got an Ultra Ball. He can get another Dino in play. That's step 1. Let's see if there's another one in his deck at the very least. Looks like no go on the Dino. So either he's discarded all of them or he has one prized. I'm not too sure what the case is. He's probably gotten rid of them all at this point, actually. So that's bad news. He's going to have to be playing without any Hydreigon from here on out. I think that's just a recipe for disaster. And that's just more reason why you should attach to your Darkrai instead of the Mewtwo that turn. You need to be powering that up. But now Joe, he's thinking, I could take the risk and just, Night Spear you. Which actually isn't that big of a risk, because he's going to knock out that Mewtwo pretty much no matter what and win the game. But he's just going to play it safe and go, you know what? I'm just going to junk hunt for my catcher. And if you don't have an N, I win the game. If you do have an N, I have an opportunity to draw out of this. But still, I think it might have been better to just Night Spear here. Now, there's already 30 on the Mewtwo, So even if Steve were to do like an Eviolite, he wouldn't survive. There's no way that Darkrai is getting knocked out for Joe. And, you know, if Steve retreats, then it doesn't even matter. Then he can just retreat and junk hunt that. Then if he max potions, he loses all of his energy, so that's not good. And if Steve retreated in, like, what would he retreat for? If he goes to Sableye, it's just Night Spear, game over. If he goes to Darkrai, Joe can just hit the Darkrai for 90, the Mewtwo for 30, and again, that's pretty much game over because the Mewtwo's one hit away, and so is the Darkrai. And yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with using Junk Hunt there, but I think Night Spear is actually the proper play there. Just, you're setting your opponent up for a two-pronged attack where either one loses him the game. So Steve, now he's contemplating his options. I think he has a catcher in his hand. This is why this was kind of a strange play from Joe. Oh, he didn't play the catcher though. Steve definitely needs to catcher there. Bring out that Darkrai with a 3 energy. Get the first hit in on it. Then you can just X-Ball. It'll do, let's see, 100 damage. Next turn you can just follow up with another X-Ball. If Joe doesn't draw the cards to power up another attacker, you're going to win. You're going to buy yourself some time. You're going to knock out his only attacker. And that's pretty much it. So not attacking that Darkrai was a big mistake. You should definitely go for that. Oh, he draws his Dino though. So he does have a chance at this game. He can take out this Sableye here with an X-Ball. And Joe's down to 1 card. So he's really on a clock here. Let's see what he draws. Not sure. Oh, he's got a Juniper. You get the Sableye and a Juniper. So here we go. He needs a catcher for the win. Does Joe Baka pull this one off? Steve already extends the hand, and yes, there is the catcher. He did have all 4 left after that junk hunt. So Joe will take this game down. He will move on to 5-0. And he's 1 game away from being the Battle Road champion here in Des Plaines, Illinois. So, kind of a scary moment for Joe. His heart skipped a few beats probably as he saw that he was in trouble of, you know, maybe losing that game when he was so far ahead at the start. But Steve just couldn't pull it off there. And Joe will continue his undefeated streak, go into round 6 with a chance to be the winner. So thanks for watching, guys. I am Pooka here from the Top Cut. We have 1 round left from this tournament. I'll be back with that shortly, and we'll see who takes this tournament down.